Hey everybody, so today I am recording a conversation with a dear friend of mine named Colin Frangicetto. Colin is a musician, a creative, visionary thinker and mind, and is one of two guitarists in the band Circa Survive. I first connected to Colin through Synchronicity when Colin reached out to me on Instagram to share with me some of his Synchronicity stories. I can't really remember when it was that he reached out, but pretty much ever since then, he has been a really important person in my life and just a bright beam of light. This person really has so much to share with the world and is such a brilliant heart, and I hope you really enjoy this conversation. We go over synchronicity, psychedelic experiences, multi-dimensional reality, all the things that you'd expect from two people that are really interested in plunging into the depths of the noosphere, or actually ascending to the heights. Either way, as the saying goes, if you look within, you'll never be without, and I hope you find a lot of value in this conversation as we journey within the without. So to learn more about Colin's work, you can follow Colin on Instagram at ColinCirca, and tune in, tap in, and turn on, as the great Timothy Leary said, paraphrasing. Enjoy. Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now, where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change. Here we are. We've had many challenges to get to this point, but anything worth doing and having is worth a challenge, right?
Indeed.
So, So Colin, you are such a light in my life, and I'm so happy to be here recording this podcast with you today. There are so many things that we can talk about and dive into, and I'm really looking forward to exploring all of it.
Me too. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this chat.
So you're actually in the midst of prepping for a journey that I had just completed. Not the same, but the same medicines. I had just gotten back from being at Rhythmia for the last week, teaching a workshop on unlocking your intuition and doing 3 plant medicine ceremonies in a row. I actually skipped out on the 4th one because I feel like I've had such a psychedelic summer and I got what I needed. So I was not really into doing the 4th. But you're prepping to leave in 10 days, you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be leaving in 10 days to jump on a plane and go to Iquitos, Peru, with our mutual dear friend, Michael Phillip. And I'll be there for a week at Blue Morpho Retreat Center, doing 5 ceremonies, 7 days, and we'll see if I go to all 5. I intend to, but I plan to also listen to my body, and very much so looking forward to it. It's going to be my first time, so exciting, nervous, which is the same feeling, I believe, just colored differently. But,
totally.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling when you get to the top of a roller coaster and it's going to be fun going down, but it's also slightly terrifying.
Yeah, exactly.
Did they tell you, is it 5 ceremonies in a row, or do you have breaks in between?
No, there's breaks. I believe there's 2. I don't think there's anything more than 2 in a row. I'm pretty sure. But I saw the schedule and I sort of forgot, because at this point now I'm just releasing myself to it. But yeah, definitely not 5 in a row. I think that would be a little much.
Yeah, definitely. Three in a row is a lot too, because I'm not sure. Every tradition is different. Every shaman's different. Every medicine's slightly different. So, where I had been coming from, every night our ceremony began around 5:30, and I think our first cup of medicine was around 6:30. And then we're done and back to our rooms by 1 a.m., 2 a.m. latest. But in other traditions, they'll work throughout the night. The night that I actually bailed on was Yahe night, which is a different kind of blend that's mostly purgative. And it's pretty much from 8 at night until 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely, I'm not totally sure about which hours, but it all sort of falls into the category of me letting go to the experience and not trying to really think too much about those specifics. And it's like for me, I would say a majority of my psychedelic experiences have occurred very late at night, through the twilight into the wee morning hours. And it's it's actually kind of like a strange habit to break of mine, actually, to have an experience in daylight hours only. Because there's something about the transition period of like day to night or night to day that I just find to be really beautiful, and also like it takes on its own meanings, and I don't know, it has its own set of like meta story properties to it. So I always enjoy like either having an experience that goes into the night from daylight, or darkness into light. So kind of whatever happens. I'm open to that, but I almost am like, yeah, I could definitely go for one of those all-nighter type of things, because it's like the lack of sleep, the delirium has its own effects that I find actually help me. It helps me with resisting less. It helps me surrender more.
Totally. Isn't it funny how that kind of happens? I'm similar to you. I prefer working with these medicines kind of in the transition period. Even with psilocybin, I like to time it around sunset to see the sunset and transition into darkness. Ayahuasca being a feminine energy, it's typically done in the evening anyway, because you're working with the moon, you're working with that maternal energy. It's that space of the womb where you go into darkness to find your light. I know some people will do ceremony during the day, but I can't even imagine doing ayahuasca at daytime.
Yeah, and yeah, it seems like it is definitely a part of the tradition to do it. The darkness is a huge part of that. But I've seen a couple like documentaries where people, and they even noted it, saying that this is actually non-traditional, but it's something that can be really beautiful. And that documentary from Shock to Awe, it's a really great one, about some veterans who treat their PTSD through various medicines, but ayahuasca being the focus. They do a daytime ceremony, just one, but they do it for a very sort of specific type of healing. And it seemed really, really cool. It seemed really beautiful. And I hope to one day do that. I think that could be really cool to experience that.
That's awesome. I actually been meaning to check out that documentary, because even this last week at Rhythmia, we had a few veterans with us, and it was just so profound to connect to them and hear their stories and what brought them there. And it was their first time working with plant medicine. And one of the travelers with me actually brought to my attention that a lot of vets are working really hard to reduce the stigma of PTSD. So they really want to drop the D of it. So it's more PTS. So it's post-traumatic stress instead of a disorder, looking at something that can be potentially healed, and it's not something that is so stigmatized. I never really thought of it that way, because I'm somebody that suffers from PTS or PTSD. And I always looked at it that was kind of the diagnosis, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something I'd never heard of until this past week.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. I think there is kind of, there's a movement of sorts just in general, I think, to start really being careful about our language when it comes to things like that. And I am completely on board with that. And in fact, I'll, start being more mindful of it now, because I do firmly believe that our tendency to like pathologize everything, and we sort of mindlessly stigmatize constantly, and seemingly almost in an increasing rate in our current society. So I'm definitely on board for anything that can sort of aid the mental part of healing is, such a huge component. And I think our words and our ideas, they have so much weight. And if we are just carelessly throwing around words that our subconscious interprets certain ways, it affects how we treat things and how we feel. So it only makes sense that we drop those D's.
Drop that D.
Drop that D.
Yeah, it's so interesting language, right? Like there's this really great video that I include in my workshop about how, our language does form reality. Abracadabra actually literally translates to I create as I speak. This woman gave this amazing talk about how even just how we look at our daily life, we go to work to make a living, it's the weekend. Everything has this period at the end of our life sentence, this finality. And we're stuck in this spell of words that we don't even realize.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, I was just sort of like tripping out on we go to work for a living, just really like getting inside of that one.
We wake to make a living.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the more we pay attention to our words and what they actually mean and how we're using them, it does sort of illuminate a lot of our underlying values that we prop up that maybe we don't even necessarily mean to, but we can be entangled in that web of kind of the wash of brains, if you will. Yeah. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too with words on the brighter side of things is that as we're speaking and actively creating our reality on the positive, I feel like the more we say things, the more we also attract the things that we desire with that right frame of mind. And I know synchronicity has played such an incredible role in your life, over these last few years, but I feel like it's gone into hyperdrive.
Yeah.
These last few months, right?
Indeed. It's been one of those things that I have sort of released into and surrendered to and accept as this part of my life, that there can be almost like a dulling of the senses with it. If you normalize it too much, you just get to this point where you're like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah. But, I really find myself in a pretty consistent place of awe. So for me, I still find myself kind of like mind blown at times. And don't get me wrong, I still can be, a dozen synchronicities away from a trip to the loony bin, I'm sure. At any given day, there's a threshold for how much of this you can kind of withstand without feeling like maybe the cracks of your own reality are just coming apart, But yeah, for me, it seems like around pivotal times in my life, it definitely ramps up. And I'm always sort of seeking a deeper understanding of those things. And as much as I can say that I just sort of accept them for what they are, like the mystery that they are, there's always a degree of further questioning that happens. And I don't know. I find that they all sort of like eventually converge into my internal GPS. It's like they're all eventually like making up my belief set, or like what connects me to the essence of living. And it's this mystery of like something I'm obviously communing with, that I would assume we all are to some degree. But in my in my super intense moments where I feel overwhelmed or perhaps somewhat frightened by the somewhat supernatural aspect of synchronicity and or just like precognitive phenomena, all that kind of stuff, I always have to just remind myself that they've never brought me anything but beauty and understanding. And over the last few months, there have been a few. And last year, probably about, I just had like a a 1 year anniversary of like the real super intense portal of synchronicity that I went through. A few months of it that was just relentless, that luckily led me to some amazing people, you being one of them. And now I just try to keep that connection intact and remember all the things that it leads me to, and tune my awareness to that.
Can you pinpoint back to that pebble in the pond of the collective, right? That started the ripple forward? Because the story is so fascinating to me. And
yeah, sure. You know, there's certain parts that I wind up just sort of like condensing and simplifying, but the nucleus of that pebble was essentially I was out. It was in Hawaii. I was on tour with my band, and we had a rare 2 days off, and actually it started off with a fuck up on our management team forgot to update the schedule. So we thought we had 1 day off in Hawaii and then a show and then jump on a plane, but instead we wound up having 2 days off, and we had this surprise. And on the first day off, we basically had almost sort of like manifested this psilocybin experience that would follow the next day. But it was sort of this weird, like, you know, we don't know anyone in Hawaii. We none of us had mushrooms. We had never taken mushrooms together as a band. And yeah, so out of nowhere the next day, the offer kind of came to our guitarist Brendan. I feel like I could go on forever about this, so I don't want to take up the whole podcast, but I basically I'll just like start to like shave off to the essence of this experience, which was that many strange things all kind of lined up so that we could have this day off in paradise. We had a Airbnb on the beach, like literally right on the beach. You walk out the backyard, you're on this beach in Hawaii, and you know we were in Honolulu, and we were at the North Shore, and extremely unpopulated beach. So it felt like a private beach in a lot of ways. And this dynamic played out between myself and our bassist, Nick. Nick is sort of a more skeptical gentleman. He's absolutely lovely and one of my best friends, but he when he has synchronicities, he just kind of goes, huh, that's neat, and moves on. And on the first day that we were in Hawaii, because he knows I get such a giggle out of all these things, he told me about a little synchronicity that him and our sound guy had, where they were watching TV and they were staying in this hotel room together. We all have like our roommates when we're on tour, and they were looking around, noticing that like it looked like no one had stayed in their room, because they're both very type A, they're both very neat, and they like, you know, they leave places generally better than the way they found them. That's just the way they are. And they were kind of commenting on that, and how it might be kind of funny for the person that comes in to clean up the room to just be like, what the fuck? Like, did a couple ghosts stay here last night? Like, but so they were commenting on that. And, you know, we had these early lobby calls on these travel dates where we're out. We were in Australia the day before. So it was like, this happened in Australia when they had like a really quick call, flew to the next city, they get to the next hotel, they check in. This is all the same day. So check out early, fly, get into the next hotel. When we're having these heavy travel days, we fly in the morning and then check into another hotel that same day and then head to the venue. So they've been having this conversation about sort of the ghostly presence they leave when they stay at hotels, being type A people and very cleanly. And then also the potential of it being totally trashed, and how that must suck to be part of the cleaning service, to not know what you're walking into every day. And they get to the second hotel of the day, and they just turn on the TV, and it's immediately at this scene of this movie Blue Crush, which is about these female surfers who actually like they actually do clean hotels. Like they're maids on their spare time to get cash. And so it's this scene where one of them is just freaking out about this hotel room being totally trashed, and they like come out and they're just like, who the fuck stayed in room 215? And and Nick and Andy were just like, holy shit, aren't we in room 215 right now? And like they were. And he told me this story, and I was just sort of chuckling about it, and I asked him, like, what do you think about that? And he just said, what do you mean? Like, I'm like, do you think it has any meaning? He was just like, nah, I just think it's random. I think it's really cool. He's like, I think it's really neat, but I don't assign any meaning to it. And I just had this, and I agreed with him. I said, I think that one is cool, but it's kind of like I think it is one of those ones that is sort of random, also neat. But I asked him, I basically just said, like, I'm just so curious about like what do you think it would take to make you say, like, what the fuck? Like, what really like blow your mind? And he was like, I don't know, definitely more than that. And I was like, okay. I just said, like, I hope the day that happens for you, that I'm there. And the following day, when we all ate mushrooms together, sure enough, yeah, I was there when he said, what the fuck? And something occurred that really blew his mind and challenged his skepticism. That really was the nucleus of all these events, because it involved it involved an octopus. Do you want the full story? Do you want the full nucleus? Yeah, I'll give it to you. Why not?
Let's
we'll go
build
deep.
this universe. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So we, interestingly enough, we were kind of like propagating this idea of taking mushrooms out there. And earlier in the day, I had even re-put it into our minds in our collective group text when the guys were over at the grocery store. They were asking if anyone needed anything, and I said, do they happen to sell psilocybin mushrooms at that grocery store? Just cheekily. And they said no. About an hour later, Brendan got a text from a friend asking him if anyone needed any mushrooms. And it was just sort of like really strange, because Brendan doesn't take hallucinogenics, and he's just the last person for this to come through, to be the conduit. But it was kind of like, all right, this is all lining up perfectly. We wind up deciding we're going to, but Brendan decides that he's going to basically take one for the team and be like the supervising role. And, I haven't told this story in a while, so I'm going to have to backtrack a little bit. But essentially the reason why he needed to have this role is because the people that were supplying the mushrooms, we didn't really know them that well, and they were lovely. But, a few of the guys definitely just wanted to make sure that it was just us who were tripping together. So Brendan just said, like, well, when they come over, like, I'll just ask them to take me into town, because I need to actually go do some shopping anyway, and I don't think I'm going to eat them with you guys. So we get the mushrooms. These lovely people come over, and then Brendan leaves with them to go into town for a while. And as they were leaving, I just said, okay, guys, like, happy trails, because I knew that the folks who supplied were actually going to have their own experience later as well. And I just said, happy trails. Thank you so much. Brendan, keep your conduits open. Like, keep the antennae up. I don't even know why I said that, but anyway, so he goes off, and then we go off, and we're having a great old time on the beach as the sun was going down, sunset. And we all took a pretty nice little chunk of this penis envy mushroom, which is definitely very, very strange and very powerful. To get to the synchronicity part, we all eat them together. We're having our come up, and Anthony, our singer and one of my best friends, starts walking ahead of us down the beach. And every step that he kind of gets away from us, I can tell that Nick's anxiety is going up a little bit, because we all have this history of sort of, back in the day, Anthony had a pretty intense substance issue. So we used to get put into these sort of like babysitting roles, or just sort of like, Nick and I were both the dads for a long time. And I think it started triggering those kind of memories for us as he started getting further and further away from us. The sun's going down, it's getting darker. And in my head, I'm just like, oh, he's going to be fine. You know, like he just needs to go off and make a solo record. Like that's kind of like how I'm framing it in my mind. And so Nick and I are just having nervous sort of like come up type of conversation. And I start kind of like digging through the depths of my mind for things to talk about. I remember that I was listening to Third Eye Drops on the plane over there. And this is actually long before I ever met Michael or talked to him. And I was listening to an episode where he or Michael Garfield pulled out this topic of cephalopod DNA being proposed as potentially coming from outer space. And anyway, I just started, I was like, brought up this theory, told Nick and a few other people that were there, about it, and asked them what they thought about that, or if they had ever heard about it, and they said no. But then basically I was like kind of referencing the fact that they could change their RNA and that it's more than just them changing their colors. And then Nick was like, yeah, because, chameleons, they can change their colors too. It's not just cephalopods and it's not just, octopi. So we're walking, and now like Anthony's completely out of sight. We don't see him anymore. And the sun's pretty much going down. It's almost completely gone. It's pretty much dark. And we start walking, and I see like this little speck of someone over in the distance, and we kind of decide maybe that's Anthony. We start walking towards him. Nick's asking me, do you think Anthony walked past us already? You think he somehow like went back? And I was like, no way, we would have seen him. But essentially we're sitting there and we're still talking about the octopi, and all of a sudden I see another little like movement, and I'm just like, Anthony? And he's like, yeah, hey guys. And like it was like all of a sudden he appeared like the way those videos you would see like octopi underwater where they're like not there and then all of a sudden they're there. Like and it had that feeling to it. But at the time I really wasn't connecting any of it. And he was just like, yeah, I've been here the whole time. Did you guys not know I've been here? And we're just like, no, like we've been looking for you. And so he's like, yeah, I was having this moment with this little squid guy over here. And we're just like, what are you talking about? And like there was this little baby squid in this little like pool of water over by where he was over by like these rocks. And we were just like, again, not putting together the fact that we were just talking about like cephalopods and like that was simultaneously linking up with him having this little moment, as he said, with this little squid guy. And we turn around, we decide we're going to head back to the house and walk all the way back to our house on the beach. And essentially a whole bunch of magical shit happens. It's insert psilocybin tripping story here. But what gets really crazy I would say like, as we're probably like 2 hours deep, maybe a little bit more. And again, mind you, Brendan's been in town the whole time with these other folks and just off and about. Nick and I decide to go inside the house. Everyone else is still out back, either on the porch or still on the beach. And we just decided to go sit in the house for a second. And as we're sitting in there, we're like seeing all these little like lizards, little like, I don't know if they're geckos or what. These little tiny lizards were like all in the interior of this house on the beach, which was really fun to watch while we were sitting in there. And all of a sudden Brendan comes out, and Brendan comes in, and we're just like happy to see him. And both sort of we're definitely still in the throes of our experience, but he was like, hey, I got to show you something. And he like comes over to us. He's like, check out this thing that I got at the store for T, his daughter. And he pulls out this chameleon, and I'm just like, that's fucking weird. Like as soon as I saw it, I was just like, what? And like Nick's just like looking at it with these big eyes, and he's like, that's like so weird. And I look at, he's like, yo, but look at it. And I pull the tag up of the chameleon, the stuffed chameleon, and it says, hi, I'm Colin the chameleon. please watch over me or something like that. And it's very just like, what? Like the wording was so perfect to just get this like reaction out of Nick and I. And we're just like, what the fuck? That is so weird, because we were just having this conversation about, and as I said, an octopi, he pulls out a little stuffed octopus, and then we just fucking lost it. Like Nick and I were laughing and like crying and looking at each other and just being like, what in the hell? Like, why? How? And I just was like, Brendan, what the fuck? Why did you buy these? And as I'm just like tears streaming down my face, and he's like, dude, the really weird thing is, he's like, I was in line checking out, and I didn't see that it was named Colin until I was at the register, and I'd already picked it up. So it was just this really great synchronicity that totally mind fucked us while we were in that experience. And of course, like as he pulled out that octopus, I literally saw and heard Nick say, what the fuck? And it was like so direct. It was just so, it just felt so personal. It felt so meaningful. You know, it was as if I asked for that and then it just happened. And it was like this very beautiful display of like, when skepticism meets belief, or at least like when skepticism meets openness. So that was that. I mean, there was so many other things that happened that were just, obviously all of us who have had these experiences, you can never really distill them into a way that can translate. But the really crazy thing was that it just didn't stop. It was like when I got home from that trip, within the few days of that experience and coming home, Michael had reached out to me and we had set up to do a podcast. I did a podcast pretty much like it was the second day I was home or first day I was home. And it was like, I told that nucleus of the story probably very differently than the way I just told it, because it's been like over a year since I've told it. But the thing that's great about it is that like it was like as soon as I unleashed that tail out into the noosphere or whatever, it was like it just fucking opened up and swallowed me. It was like the second I got off the podcast call with him, it was just nothing but octopi synchronicities and chameleon synchronicities, like in the most direct and loud and crazy way you can imagine, for fucking 3 months straight, to the point where I was taking them so seriously that I was taking cues and signs from Twitter and jumping on airplanes and going to events and stuff, because essentially it started leading me to people and places and things that I was wanting to be connected to. Yeah, to this day, it's still one of the most beautiful mysteries of my life.
Yeah, it's so tremendous because there's just so many layers to it. And if you look at it from like the Buddhist point of view of how everything has an inner, outer, and secret meaning, like there's just so many layers to that synchronicity, and the fact that it's octopus. And when you came for Whitma, we saw there was a ton of octopus synchronicity too.
Yeah, like in a really huge way. And I haven't really like said this out loud to many people, but in a lot of ways I've started sort of, as I've been, remaining very open and really kind of doing some detective work here and there. I guess you could say spiritual detective work. It's like I can't help but notice how many people I know have said that they had some type of profound type of calling to go drink the medicine for the first time. And I can't help but notice that like everything has led me to this. And the most recent one, like at Whitma, like was also surrounding it, but not only for me, but for my wife, Sarah. And it's interesting. I mean, I don't know what to think about that. I don't know what to say about that. All I know is that it's fucking fascinating. It's simultaneously beautiful and awe-inspiring, and also a little tiny bit terrifying. So that's where I'm at with all of it. But I mean, I could literally fill hours upon hours of these octopi, or just basically these synchronicities that spiraled out from that nucleus of that one. And one that's really fucking weird that I'll just say real quick is there were retroactive ones. There was one that happened right before I left for the Australia-Hawaii trip that I didn't even know or pay attention to, but it was so fucking mind-blowing when I figured it out. I had gone to Tao Lin. He did a reading at Pal's, and I went to the reading, and he and I had talked a little bit beforehand. We were like a little friendly, but still mostly strangers, to the point where I still got in line to go, get my book signed by him and just give him a little like care package that I put together for him, like a couple joints and some rare, weird books that I thought he would like. And he gives me this postcard shaped thing. It looked like, actually it had the feeling of a photograph. And I remembered like looking at it when he gave it to me, and I just thought it was like a picture he had taken. Like I thought maybe he got a roll, like a disposable camera, and just took a bunch of random photos and then was just giving people these photos. I didn't have any significance that I could tie to this image. In my head, it was just like an image of like a cartoon or something that he had taken a picture of. And I paid no attention to it. It was in my copy of his book Trip, which I was reading on the whole journey over in Hawaii and Australia. So this little photograph, print, whatever you want to call it, was sitting in my copy and traveling with me this entire time. It was like, 10 feet away from me in that house that I was tripping with my band in. And when I fucking got home, and I literally had probably a dozen plus at this point of these crazy, weird synchronicities that were like borderline creeping me out. And I was like putting stuff in this little wooden box that I was like saying, like, this is the trip box. I'm just going to put little knickknacks that I kind of hold meaning to me and have some kind of charge for me. And I'm going to keep them in this box, and I'm going to always open it whenever I'm around it and kind of like have it be sort of like, just like a portal into that place. And I had put that thing, that little photograph in there. And, so fast forward to a dozen plus of these synchronicities. I open up the trip box to put like a little pebble or a stone in there from Hawaii. And like, I'm like, oh yeah, I should put that little print photo in there, grab it out of the book, go to put it in there. And I look at it and I just fucking shriek because it's this, because it's this fucking ugly doll looking version of an octopus holding a baby octopus. And they're both, the baby octopus is sleeping in its arm. And I was just like, I got chills, like just like how, like what the fuck? Like I couldn't, my brain just like stopped and like leaked out of my nose. Like I didn't know what to do with that. I was like, how is that possible? Was it subconsciously priming me? I started going down all of the rationalist, roads of what does this mean? Was this subconsciously priming me to be drawn to the octopus topic in the podcast, meaning, and then making me fixate on it? It was just mind blowing. And yeah, I think I might have even freaked out Tao a little bit when I sent him a message about like, what does it all mean? Like, what is this? But yeah, really such an amazing string of events that led me to some of my favorite experiences and favorite people who I still have relationships with, i.e. you.
Well, I mean, it's just like, it's also maddening and mind-opening, and just, the retroactive synchronicity is also what kind of blows my mind with it too. But, my dear friend Daniel Pinchbeck had written in one of his books about how in shamanic cultures, they believe that synchronicities are signs that you're on the right path. Mm-hmm. And so much of this is tied to not only plant medicine work, but I think there's something to it without sounding too woo. I'm a firm believer in the idea of like soul groups and incarnating as a group and then finding each other yet again. And there's something that's happened in the last few months with just friendships and connecting to people where it's not necessarily feeling like you're meeting somebody for the first time, but you're remembering. And there's always strong synchronicity around that for me too.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how I felt when I met my wife. That's how I felt when I met Sarah. and it was totally a remembering. And that was one of the last periods of time prior to this one where I had a huge amount of synchronicities happening. And I think it is really interesting that it does happen in these sort of forks in the road, or these pivotal points in time. And it does make me question some of the more interesting theories about, like, you know, the multiple universe theories and stuff like that. Is this somehow a potential future beckoning for this present moment to go that way? Like almost like wanting it as a, to kind of make the bridge. You know, if these potential futures are all campaigning for various present moments, it definitely feels like there's some kind of strange coaxing or campaigning going on. You can almost like imagine some kind of weird, you know, interdimensional realm where they're at the control helm of like, oh, we got to get this guy to go this way so he can meet up with this future, you know, like, you know, it just feels like that at times. It's like there's some type of thing trying to egg you into this direction. And then when you do, and sort of just complete confetti madness happens as you go through it, you're just like, wow, like, you know, it makes me completely understand why people can believe in fate and why they can believe in certain things, because some things certainly do feel that way.
Yeah, that's like, I love the idea of potential futures campaigning for the present moment. That's such a beautiful statement. Like looking at these as like these existential breadcrumbs, right? Like if there are these interdimensional beings, or maybe it's this other iteration of ourselves, we can't make ourselves present, right? Because it's that whole butterfly effect. The butterfly flaps his wings here, causes a tsunami in Japan, whatever the real saying is, right? So it's like maybe we leave these little signs that we know that we'll respond well to as a way to kind of nudge us on the path for the potential that they'd like to see actualized.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, another thing someone brought up recently, I think that potential futures campaigning thing, I feel like Garfield's someone who talks a lot about that kind of idea. And then do you know the ungoogleable Michelangelo? Do you know that guy?
I don't.
Oh man, he's what a mind! Really amazing thinker, artist, speaker, musician guy. But he was talking about this thing called the cheating the ferryman theory. He was talking about how I completely forget the name of the guy who came up with it, and I'm probably going to butcher it. Sorry, but look it up. Cheating the ferryman theory. And essentially he was talking about how this, at the moment of death, that you go through the life review, but that essentially it's not like it's not a traditional life review in that you're just seeing, you know, your life flash before your eyes or something. It's, you literally begin your life all over again and start living it over again. Only the fact is that you now have this daemon who has seen it all and gone through it already, is now like by your side, perhaps in another dimension, but, you know, going through this with you and kind of guiding you along the way, trying to tell you things to avoid, because there's obviously these certain points where you know, that pebble makes the first splash and then you have all these things ripple out from it. I just thought that was a really interesting idea. And it makes me think of just like, you know, these type of things where you're following these signs and these somewhat paranormal feeling, you know, alignments that make you think like, well, what will happen if I don't follow this? You know, like I should. Like that's kind of the place where I get to with it sometimes. Perhaps maybe that's like my more like neurotic side. I get slightly neurotic about these synchronicities to the point where if they're happening the way these were happening, I'm almost like, what's going to happen? Like, what's going to happen if I don't follow these signs, if I don't follow all of these like divine interventions, if you will? The fear of disobeying the synchronicities definitely tends to permeate through my brain.
Yeah, I kind of go through that as well, but then I think of, so like I've had a lot of synchronicities relating to the Kabbalah lately. It's weird how the different, I guess, color of synchronicity changes over time. But, even when you had performed in Jersey and I came to see you, how Anthony's son had drawn this piece of geometry on his hand that I actually had in a dream that I discussed with Michael Phillip, right? And it was so mind-blowing, but it tied back to this idea. I actually just finally ordered the book on Amazon. It's called like The Divine Triangle, and talking about how, there are these little phases of life that we go through, and it's just the template for living. And then piggybacking off of that, you look at like the Kabbalah tree of life, and it's like you always start at the beginning and find your way to the end. And every other direction that you go will eventually lead you to where you need to go. So I think even when, say, if we don't follow a synchronicity, there always is a divine reroute for whatever potential
absolutely.
that'll eventually get you to where you need to go.
I love it. The divine GPS reroutes itself.
Exactly.
Rerouting. It definitely feels like that, and I absolutely concur with you. And that's definitely what I say to the part of me that is getting neurotic about it. It's like, don't worry, you miss one, there'll be more.
Exactly. Have you found, though, so this is something that I've noticed, say synchronicities are tied to maybe getting that taste to go do plant medicine, or that kind of idea in your head that, okay, now I feel like ayahuasca is coming into the field. But now that you're so close to going on that journey, have you felt like in your dreams or anything else that there's like a speeding up of things? That seems to be a common phenomenon with a lot as you like approach ceremony.
Yeah. Well, the clock definitely seems to tick faster these days. It definitely feels like, holy shit, I can, it feels like yesterday that we just first talked about it, Michael and I, and even just like booking the tickets and making it real feels like it happened a day ago, but it was months ago. So I think I do think that that's a thing, but I have been feeling some stuff internally for sure. Like these sort of, I can't tell if it's a dialogue with just a part of myself who is more in touch with future me, or potentially more in touch with Aya, but it's sort of like this guiding voice that helps me push away moments of like overwhelm, of fear about the journey or the experience, and rewards me like as I overcome them with calmness and like a sense of peace. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just like the struggle of like really just combating normal anxieties. It's funny because I think like, I don't know, a few years ago, this experience would have really freaked me out. Like leading up to it, I would be really panicky and just sort of like nervous about all kinds of things. And for the most part, I feel very, very calm. I feel very like I'm in the mindset of that it's already happened, and that it went beautifully, and that everything is as it should be. I don't know. I don't know if all of that is just some trick I'm playing on myself to not get freaked out or anxious, but if it is, it's working well.
Well, I think it might have already been happening when, or that pebble in the pond first happened, because the fact that you're going on this journey with Michael, and there is so much tied to where the synchronicity began, and I think what it's leading you to, there's something really profound about that all.
Yeah. It does feel cosmically twinged for sure. And he and I are like sort of like a metaphysical odd couple in the sense, we definitely have our overlap. We definitely have our Venn diagram. The center is filled with all kinds of juicy stuff, but we also have these very distinct differences as well. And I think it'll be really beautiful the way we can support each other through this experience and present different points of view in how we distill it and how we integrate and how we share and document it. Yeah, really grateful for the way it's unfolding.
And it's so awesome that, at WITMA, you guys had given their panel on integrating the psychedelic experience. So
I know. It's all so meta and hysterical, and yeah, I love it. I don't know. I love all these hanging questions that seem to just like all culminate into just this grin that I can't shake. It just all feels like, yep, just like this slow, steady nod and grin.
Oh, that's so funny that you said that, the yep thing, because the thing about ayahuasca and these plant medicine experiences that anytime you go in with a preconceived notion about what it's going to be, it gives you the complete opposite. So this week, my last week I was there, I literally was like, I'm probably going to purge, and it's probably going to take me to the hell realms, and I've been going through a lot this summer, so I'm just ready to get my ass handed to me. And it was like everything but that. I mean, I have not laughed so much this week than I have in a really long time. And throughout the week, my my dear friend Valeria, the Mexican witch who was at our Whitma in New York, who I really hope you get to meet one day. She is just such a spark. Mary and I had kind of gotten really close, and we also became close with another fellow traveler. And there was one night where we just laughed and laughed and laughed. And for some reason, I kept imagining us being like the guys from King of the Hill that are just like, yep.
That's great.
Taking the sip of ayahuasca and being like, yep.
Oh my God. Perfect.
Somebody's purging and screaming and going, no, 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 no. And we're just sitting there like, yep. This is the journey.
Love it.
But that's the beauty of those things. And I think, following the dieta, right, it's giving you everything that you need to kind of keep your body clear so that you can make the most out of the trip and have the cleanest vessel going in. And I've had times where I follow the dieta through and through, no salt, no garlic, no onions, nothing. But this time around, I actually wasn't very good. I did caffeine and was eating shit food. I don't eat meat, but I was eating a lot of fried stuff, and I didn't have any purge. So, wow. I mean, I think it's just kind of this is a supplemental thing to ensure that you make the most out of the experience, but the experience is going to give you exactly what you need anyway.
Yeah. And, that's been a big part of, my work with my therapist as well. As we she's been helping me prepare. She has this mentality of preparation is the best integration. And, essentially one of her biggest lessons, for me, or one that we've kind of extracted from my own parts as we've done IFS work together, is my resistance to just trusting in the natural order of things. And the more that I trust, the more things just unfold completely as they should and as they will. But, she's always, kind of reminding me at the end of each session, see, did you think we'd end up here today? And, she's like, I sure didn't. And I was just like, no, it's always this surprise. And yeah, so I think trusting in the natural order of things really coincides perfectly with this experience. And for me, every part of the dieta, as extreme or as as simple, it's just a matter of focusing energy and sort of making it this thing that I'm doing mindfully. And that's really the only thing that's important to me personally, is that I'm just going in with the intention of respecting the medicine, respecting this tradition that I'm getting to partake in. But for, at the bottom of all of that is trusting in the natural order, trusting in the medicine, trusting in myself. That's what really kind of has always pulled me through every other experience. I've had very similar experiences with other medicine to what you described, of just kind of really bracing for a spanking and then getting the complete opposite and realizing that it's just not going to be how you think it's going to be. It's not up to you in a lot of ways.
The art of surrender.
Yeah. It's what I'm always wanting to learn more and more about. It's what I want to know how to do better at all times. And it's just it's another part of me trying to control it. It's just you can't dominate surrender.
No, it's the whole point. You have to surrender.
Yep.
But that's actually, it's funny because one of the things that you've said to me in one of our conversations recently that really stuck with me and has been kind of an overarching lesson, and even just I'm really looking at it as I'm integrating from the medicine about how you had told me how you were kind of like in awe of how I'm kind of this psychonaut that can surrender to these transcendental entheogenic experiences, but I have such a hard time being a human.
Yeah.
So surrendering to being human and that flow, that's a whole other art form as well.
Indeed. Yeah. And it's interesting how that will like really play into how certain people go through and, go through these experiences. And I think there is some kind of interplay there. I think maybe the fact is that for you, that's like your lesson. That's like it's like your thing that you need to focus on. Sort of like maybe that's another reason why you didn't have any kind of punishment for just sort of being a human and eating that human food. And, it's like that's part of what it's trying to teach you anyway. And I think it's just fascinating to me how unique and individual so many of the stories that I've heard, so many of the reports, they are so uniquely tailored to the individual. And yet at the same time, there's this unifying principle at the core of it, or unifying entity, or whatever you want to say. There's definitely this one thing that seems to kind of tie them all together. So
For sure. I always think of, and I've probably mentioned this on another podcast before, but it's so potent. And, do you remember that movie Contact with Jodie Foster?
Oh yeah, it's one of my all-time favorites.
It's so good. And how at the end, when she finally makes contact, the way that these beings speak to her is that they manifest in the form of what she's comfortable. You see her father, you see this scene that's in her mind, and it's just the way things are done. So I think that the unique tailoring, that's also really special, because there's definitely an ayahuasca flavor to things where, the geometry, the snakes, the fractals and all that stuff. But you do meet things along the way that are your reflections in the cosmic mirror that you need to see.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
I can't wait to hear about yours.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell you about it.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I'm really excited about too for your journey, beyond all the kind of downloads you're going to receive, is the art that you create is so beautiful. So I'm really looking forward to how it's going to be channeled into your art and music and all the things.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I'm going in with a few different intentions, but that's certainly something I'd like to connect to and sort of. I don't know if I'm seeking guidance necessarily, but just reflection. Like, my creative path is just, it's what's brought me to for over half of my life now. I've been kind of on this strange, like following your bliss kind of road, and it's led me so many amazing places. But there's always another corner to be turned, and I don't know. I'm just always sort of in this place of investigation and trying to figure out what the next thing is. And every time I'm in this place of trying to figure it out, it's just like I hit a wall. There's like this sense of defeat, and then there's this remembering of like, duh, it's just about sitting down and taking the time to be with yourself and letting what's in there come out, and not trying to figure it out, quote unquote. That's another one of my parts that's very dominant, the trying to figure it out. Like me in the middle of a therapy session and, dictating what it means already while I'm in the session. It's like, can that part just chill out and just like, let's like do that later, but I'm always trying to figure it out. And I think that's another one of those things that's sort of waiting for me, is to just like remember again that there's nothing to figure out.
Yeah, I think it's figuring in.
Wow, love it. Yeah.
So what's kind of next beyond that? I know we talked about potentially a podcast in the works. Like what's cooking? What are some things that are on the horizon for you creatively?
I'm definitely tinkering with the podcast medium. Other than that, I have a bunch of ideas for, kind of my next art show visually. I'm still in the figuring it out mode of that one, but I've been in circa mode for a while, where we made a record about 2 years ago, and I'm just sort of wrapping up the record cycle now. So we're kind of in the process of passing music back and forth, and we're still doing it, still going strong after 15 years, which is crazy. The schedule has sort of opened up in a way that's allowing me to dive into some of my other pursuits, and I think that's going to be some writing, it's going to be some podcasting, and then just I really just want to be in student mode. To be frank, I want to be reading and going to like workshops. I really want to learn like 3D printing. I really want to learn like how to sew. I want to get into sculpting, and I don't know, just have all these sort of things kind of pulling at me. So I think for me, I'm definitely like entering into the phase that I call like input mode. I'm exiting input mode, going to be heading into output mode.
Well, I can't wait to see all the things.
Me too.
For everybody that's listening, how can people stay in touch and learn more about what you're working on and what you're outputting into the multiverse?
Really, however they like. I'm very easy to find. My name's Colin Frangicetto, Frangicetto, and you can just Google me and find me wherever you want. I just appreciate any type of contact with like-minded human beings, and very grateful.
Well, I'm grateful for you. Honestly, that day I got the Instagram message from you, it's just the echo forward from there has really been life-changing, and you've become an integral part of my field. So I'm so grateful that you did reach out, because you and your lovely wife, Sarah, are just such wonderful beings, and I'm just so happy. And I'm so grateful for all the things, and to be here now, and for who you are and who you're going to become, and all the beauty and joy on the horizon. Just love you so much, and can't wait to pick up where we left off. Love you. Till next time.